Good morning and welcome to this edition of Fireside Chat. You may not see a fireplace here, but it's imaginary, and we're here having a friendly discussion today. I am PJ Wilkins. I'm the Vice Chair of the OmniAir Consortium, and I'm also the Executive Director of the E-ZPass Interagency Group. My special guest here today is Maxime Flament. He is the Chief Technology Officer for the 5G Automotive Association. We have a great show for you today, and our topic is market trends for C-V2X around the world. It's a fascinating subject, obviously lots to talk about, lots to learn. Unfortunately, we have a very restricted time today. We've got a 30-minute segment, and so we're going to get as much into that 30 minutes as we can. We would ask if anybody in the audience has any burning questions, you can chat them. We will try to get to those, but again, lots of ground to cover today, and we're very excited. So let's go ahead with that and get started. So again, my guest today is Maxime Flament. So Maxime, for the benefit of those who are not familiar with your association, can you please give us some background and purpose of the 5G AA?
Of course, thanks, PJ. So yes, the 5G Automotive Association was founded a few years ago, almost 4 years ago, and it's an industry association. It's a global activity, and it brings together the two sectors that did not cooperate really a lot in the past, namely the telco on one side and the automotive industry on the other side. And so the two sectors have a very long history, industrial history and a legacy, and they have their own way of working, and putting these guys together is not always easy. On the telco side, they really have these need for standardization, standardizing all interfaces so that eventually the mobile network is actually working. But on the vehicle manufacturer side, it's really much a hierarchic way of working with a clear supply chain, the tier 1 suppliers and the tier 2 suppliers, etc. And everyone is specifying what needs to be in the car, and the suppliers need to provide exactly that product. Also, the very interesting is that the product life cycle of these two industries are very different, and so when on one side when we see a consumer electronics life cycle of 18 months, and we have cars that have to last 10 years on the roads, and so now 5G is really there to also promote a specific set of standards, and that's the 3GPP standards. And 3GPP is the body worldwide that is doing all the standardization for 3G, 4G, 5G, the different generations of mobile network. And it's really supported by thousands of experts. And there, in 2017, the V2X standard was introduced, and it's really an integrated radio technology, putting the mobile network on the access to the internet, and then on the other side you have the short-range communication that used to be very much studied using IEEE 802.11p. And now the short-range communication standard for 3GPP has also now gained a lot of tractions around the world.
Okay, thank you. So I'm pretty much a novice at C-V2X. I live in the tolling world. I do try to keep up with it through my work with OmniAir, and there are a lot of interactions between the two industries anyway. But what I do know, or what I do read, tends to be very US centric. So, I hear about that a lot. So we are a global organization, right, OmniAir. So can you tell us a little bit about how you see the market for C-V2X developing in Asia, Europe, the Americas? What are you seeing kind of around the world? Okay,
so we always need to put that into perspective. So C-V2X is a building block inside the 5G family, or 4G, 5G family. So if I talk about Asia, Europe, and America, we need to also blend it with the huge momentum that we have around the 5G deployment. And so if I start with Asia, Korea was one of the first one really putting the network online. China followed very soon after, and they are already at hundreds of thousands of 5G base stations all over they are really covering a lot of the Korean most populated areas, I would say. And we have, I think the last numbers that I heard, they are already almost at the 10 million subscribers in Korea. China has been starting a bit later, but then really kicking in very fast and with a lot of support, obviously, from the government. That's the way China is working, actually. From the short range point of view, I would say China has been one that was very quickly supporting the 3GPP standard for short range. They saw an opportunity. They knew that they had huge investments in 5G, and therefore they really said that 3GPP standard is the way to go. And the industry followed very quickly. There are 13 vehicle manufacturers that have announced that they will start mass deployment of these short-range communication this year or at the beginning of next year. Now that's for Asia. I'm not going to go into Japan because that's a bit more complicated. They have already their short-range communication in place. Now, when we are talking about Europe, there is a clear action plan around Europe for it's called the 5G action plan. There is a city deployment that was almost compulsory to all member states as of this year, and then a gradual improvement of the network, eventually achieving by 2025 a trans-European road network covered completely. So. And what was interesting also, the spectrum is that actually managed by the different member states. And so the rules are different per member state, and we have 27 member states. So, for example, Germany, they have included compulsory 5G coverage on the road network with minimum quality of service. That means 100 megabits per second as a minimum service. So that means really we can say that the 5G coverage is going to be there in 2025, really delivering the services that we count for. Now, for the short range in Europe, that was a little bit complicated. A lot of pilots and tests have been using Wi-Fi based over the years. For almost 15 years, we have seen, and I was part of that. We have looked at what is called ITS-G5. That's a European version of 11P in DSRC in Europe, and that was funded by the European Commission. And so naturally, the European Commission was in favor of continuing with the ITS-G5, and from our point of view, we clearly made the case for letting the market decide which tech should be embraced by the vehicle manufacturers. And so eventually this EC regulation was objected by the Council of Ministers last year. And so that really puts a level playing field for the introduction of DSRC on one side and ITS-G5. And so we see already that some vehicle manufacturers have opted for ITS-G5, whereas a few others are looking at the V2X along with the 3GPP technology. Now, for US, I'm not sure. I think that you're a bit better. I mean, you know more of. So I'm not going to get in there, and so perhaps we can discuss that a bit later.
Let me follow up with you. You know, so you mentioned how well China has been doing as a leader in promoting CV2X testing and deployment. And so I guess I would wonder why Why is that? What has driven China into that position? And what can Europe or the rest of the world learn from China's early success?
Okay, we have to be a bit careful with comparing ourselves to China. So, I mean, this is not the same kind of government. This is not the same kind of way of living. So I wouldn't envy too much to what is happening in China. But what is clear is that they have a very top-down approach in terms of decisions. They took decisions, and they also work with the industry heavily so that they get the products on the market in a very fast manner. Now, what was interesting is that they really decided to go in one direction, and then they put a plan of deploying 40,000 kilometers with 5G and roadside units also, so along highways, and also they have, I think there are about 10 different cities where they are seriously planning on putting and connecting all the intersections with roadside units, and also connecting them to cloud services. So at the end, okay, China is a one-way decision maker in terms of policy, but it went in the favor of 5G and the 3GPP technologies. Now, can we learn from that in US or Europe? I would say that there is a much more democratic way of approaching the debate. And also we let the industry decide of in which direction it wants to go. And that direction,
it takes longer then. It takes longer to make decisions. It gets longer, longer to get to those policies.
Yeah. So, but the sad part is that for years and years we have been talking about deploying short-range communication in US, in Europe. It did not really happen, and I think we were discussing too much and doing too less.
So one of the things that we've talked about a lot over here is spectrum availability, spectrum allocation availability. How does that play out in the rest of the world? Is that also an issue? Is it as important as it is here? And how is that kind of shaking out?
Yeah, well, I would say spectrum is important all over the world. It's a natural resource, and we really need to look at the spectrum in a very serious manner because that's the real estate of telecommunication. Now,
you want to get that?
No. Now, it's a little bit peculiar in US because there is a very strong Wi-Fi lobby that managed to now convince the FCC that the Wi-Fi is the way to go for in the 5.9 gigahertz. That's from our point of view a little bit sad, because we were gearing up really to get quite a good chunk of band for ITS safety. Now, is it the end of V2X or DSRC? No, it's not. There is still 30 megahertz of band that is allocated to ITS safety. Now, the problem is that we are like squeezed in between two Wi-Fi bands, and we have to make sure that the interferences coming from these Wi-Fi are not destructive for the services, the ITS services. And we have made some tests at 5GA. We see that there is clear danger of interference, harmful interferences. And we have been advocating at FCC to make sure that the Wi-Fi operation can be done indoor, but refrain on outdoor operations of these Wi-Fi at these frequency bands.
Okay. So we've been talking a lot generally about C-V2X. Let's talk a little bit about some more specific deployments or actions that have been happening. I'm a little bit curious about Audi's V2N2I traffic light information service. What can you share with us about that system?
Okay, so Audi has been active since 2016, if I remember well, with the traffic light information service, and actually that really started in the US with a few cities. Now I think that we have more than 20 or up to 30 cities in US. It started gradually also in Europe, and that's a service that is using the mobile network. It uses the mobile network. It picks up the information related to the traffic light, which is delivered by the city, and displays it in front of you when you're approaching a red light, and tells you which speed you should adopt, and eventually when the green light is going to turn green. It's really nice technology. It really gives a comfort because you don't rush to the red light. You know when it's going to turn green, and it's actually very much appreciated by the different vehicle manufacturers. Now you mentioned Audi. They were the first ones, but other vehicle manufacturers now are picking up also with that service.
So, and I assume that then helps an awful lot with traffic flow and throughput, right? And reduces the backups and the jams. So very, very interesting.
Indeed, because you can instead, there is always a lag time between different vehicles starting at a red light or a green light. And so then what you want is that everyone on the queue starts and is ready to start, and make sure that the gap is not too large between the vehicles when it passes the red light or the green light, sorry.
So yeah, and so another initiative that's been brought up was BMW has announced 5G vehicles in 2021 and integration between those vehicles and smartphones. Can you tell us about that?
That was actually in Europe. So so it has announced this, and it's a major step. It's a technological, pride that they want to get, and so they want to make sure that they are the first one with the 5G vehicles in Europe. Is that actually coming with the short range communication? We don't know yet. It's not clear, but I would say that if I look at the 2021 timeframe, I think that this will firsthand be a 5G connectivity with the mobile network, and then perhaps 1 year or two after it will pick up, and then also add the short range communication capabilities.
Okay. Finally, on kind of on the separate these more detailed topics, what is the significance of the announcement that in 2023 Continental is going to supply 2 European vehicle manufacturers with 5G V2X telematics units? Why? What is big about that?
So that's the first announcements really for 5G V2X. So where we were usually looking at what we call LTE V2X. Now 5G V2X is in addition to basic safety services, so very, very basic in terms of interaction with different vehicles and the infrastructure. It adds also capabilities for automated driving functionalities between vehicles with, for example, cooperative maneuvers or sensor sharing, and these kind of additional features that are not possible when you're just using LTE V2X capabilities or the SRC if this is the case. So so now we we're looking at Continental, obviously, and the date of 2023 was a little bit coming as a surprise for 5G V2X. We obviously we did not get much more details of what is in the market announcement, but this really shows that we have a global appetite for 5G technology on one side, and then the additional capabilities of the vehicle-to-vehicle short-range communication. And we should also think that there is usually very little announcement of these kind of products by the vehicle manufacturers. Vehicle manufacturers are quite shy of announcing too long ahead what they are going to do, because it gives an indication to the competitors where to go. Yeah. So Ford, for example, very early on, what was it, almost 2 years ago, they announced that they would have LTE V2X short-range communication in all of their vehicles, all of the new models by 2022. That was a huge announcement in the US. Now they did it in order to make sure that the short-range communication is on the roadmap of the policymakers, such as FCC and the US DOT, etc., showing that there is a clear commitment for that kind of technology as opposed to the SRC.
Okay. So, on another topic, Maxime, this week, OmniAir's Plug Fest is focused on testing and certification for C-V2X devices. Tell us why certification is so important in this marketplace.
Now, one thing that we have to know is the vehicle manufacturers really don't like to hear about certification. They really don't like this kind of they see it as a cost rather than a benefit. And one of the reasons for that, especially in Europe or other parts of the world where there is a very heavy type approval regulation, which is not the case in the US, but the type approval regulation is seen as the certification. So how can you actually get a type approved vehicle on the road? And then there is a list of hundreds of standards to follow in order to be certified and be allowed to sell a car on the market. So they see that this with very, very careful eyes, and then they want to make sure that there is a positive cost-benefit ratio to if they engage really in a certification with the likes of OmniAir, and so we are at the time now with discussion with the vehicle manufacturers where they actually see that benefit, and why is that? It's because they really see they are in a competitive environment. They see that they don't really want to announce what kind of radios they are going to have, and they would like to just have a place where they can go certify their devices and eventually end up with a cross-vendor interoperability while preserving their competitive advantage. And so that kind of certification program is really priceless then for the vehicle manufacturers.
That makes sense. Yeah. Now I'm going to get a little self-indulgent here and take some time to talk about something that's a little bit out of the mainstream. So beyond the initial safety benefits of connected vehicles, there are going to be other benefits available as well. Do you see there being a push to add commercial payment services such as tolling, parking, gas purchases, so on? I mean, it seems like there's so much potential out there. And while I'm not suggesting it should be early in the program, I would assume that is coming at some point. Do you agree? And what are you seeing kind of building in that regard?
Tolling is another sector that is huge and with multi-billion revenue. So, but what is clear is that tolling is all about delivering a service and that service is a transaction and the access to a road. And so whether you're doing tolling via a GNSS-based service or via the tags that you have on your windshield or via V2X, it does not really matter. What matters is that you are actually getting this transaction done with 99.9999 reliability. Now, there are around the world standardization organizations that have looked at tolling, and then they are standardizing the way to use V2X for tolling, and so of course, if this kind of equipment is going to hit, to be on all the Fords as of 2022, we should make sure that it does not do that only for safety or efficiency of the traffic, but also for other services that are that really mean something for the users, and tolling is one of them. I'm pretty sure that these aspects are going to come as an additional service, a very attractive service for the for the people that purchase this kind of short range communication capabilities in their vehicle. So.
Sure. So I see a day when it goes much beyond tolling. We kind of talked about tolling in detail, but do you envision a day like I do, maybe, where you can get in your car and you not only pay your toll in the car, but you stop and get gas and you pay for gas with the car. You go through a drive-through and pick up, a cup of coffee or a hamburger, and that's paid for. The car can find you a parking spot. There are so many potentials with this kind of connectivity. I wonder if are we just scratching the surface? Will we 5 years from now, 10 years from now, be doing things with the cars that we're not even considering today?
I pretty much think so. Yes. What we are seeing here is the start of Internet of Vehicles, a whole new possibilities for the vehicles as they are connected to the internet, and as they can also connect with each other, or connect to the gas station if it wants to purchase the fuel that it or the electricity, obviously. Now there are a few additional building blocks that need to be put and standardized, and there are at the moment at 3GPP a lot of discussions about these building blocks. Make sure that the capabilities of secure payments are going to be delivered very soon. So yes, I really do think that we are in an Internet of Vehicles, and then we will see a huge amounts of new services that can be then leveraged on top of that technology.
So being in the interoperability business with E-ZPass, I know that technology is not the hardest thing to overcome. It is how we treat customers, how the back offices are set up, how payments are processed, the security of that. And so I think we still have a lot to learn as we go through the process. Who owns the customer? How does the customer manage accounts and payments and so on? So that's enough for a whole nother discussion another day. Yes. I see that we are running out of time, so I would ask, first of all, I want to thank you for participating and ask, do you have any closing comments, any last thing you want to tell us about 5G AA or CVDEX?
No, well, I really welcome any of you if you're interested to come and look at our latest roadmap. This roadmap was published beginning of September, and it really gives a 10 years roadmap for the introduction of CV2X and 5G capabilities in the car. So I invite you to check this out. Thanks.
We'll do that. Maxime, thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Thanks.